Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining this webinar, either live or as a recording. We have a formidable team of speakers, and let's get straight to them. As the information they've worked so hard for you is all about SMEs, and it's really about encouraging you to trade digitally. But first off, we'd like an introduction from our host, Isabel Farquhar, from the International Scale Up Program Manager of the Greater Manchester Growth Hub, who is also speaking on behalf of Lauren Hughes, the Global and Manchester Chamber of Commerce Network Manager, who have both very kindly promoted this event to their 6,000 members. So, Isabel, next slide, and over to you.
Thank you, Mark. Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Isabel Farquhar. I'm the project manager for the International Scale Up program at GM Business Growth Hub in Manchester. So I've been asked to talk to you very briefly about the landscape in terms of export support in the UK, including Greater Manchester. So you may probably, you probably know that 90% of global growth is happening outside the UK. And the good news is that there is a lot of funded support for businesses like yours who may be just exploring export for the first time or are established exporters. So the support landscape starts with the Department of Business and Trade. You probably know that they've set up since April a business academy that is for any business, but they have a big section for exporters. So that's where you start for your market research. You can attend webinars, workshops. You can get country profiles. There's a lot of resources for businesses that are have achieved a turnover of at least 500k. You can also receive one-to-one support from international trade advisors at the DBT. You should also consider tapping into the Chamber of Commerce, the Chamber of Commerce network in the UK. The Greater Manchester Chamber, for example, provides a lot of support around export documentation, customs support when you've got issues, one-to-one support, and then also access to export training. So there's a lot of help available. From the point of view of Greater Manchester, so I represent GM Business Growth Hub. We can provide you with funded support again with a program called the International Scale Up program. We take you on a journey for over 12 months. You get one-to-one support from an international growth advisor who will guide you through the process of looking at market entry, identifying new markets, or if you want to grow in your existing markets, we support you with that too. So you can develop an export strategy with your advisor, and they support you with implementing that strategy. You get access to a grant as well for market entry. We also do a lot of other activities such as trade missions. We're working on a trade mission to India at the moment, China, Osaka, and Australia next year. And we do a lot of events. The next events are around accessing our support from market experts in any country, really. So if you want to talk to us about that, you can. There's a QR code at the end of this presentation, and we'll be happy to help. So that's me in a nutshell, and hopefully you'll be able to continue with accessing support. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Isabel. And Dana, next slide, please. Right, a warm welcome to you all, and our speakers will introduce themselves as we move through this session. You're going to hear about the trends, opportunities, and impact for your business from Elsa of Thetis. And it's always good to start with a high-level academic view. We have a new Deliver Duty Paid solution from the UK to Europe that helps you trade to the EU as if you're still in the EU, which Liam and Hader will present. I'm going to walk you through the BOEX platform so you can see how easy it is for you to secure the benefits of digital trade. And then we're going to have a fireside chat with one of the first SMEs to trade on BOEX and one of the most recent. So Jane and David will talk about the issues they face and how digital trade is helping them overcome them. And finally, we have a government audited proof that digital trade works in a series of trades we ran from the UK to Australia and New Zealand, run by Zara of Public. So that is the team, and that's the agenda. Please do post any questions in the Q&A, as we'll have time at the end, but if we don't manage to read out all of your questions, we will follow up with every single one of them by email. And you'll also receive a recording of this session. So it's a great pleasure to introduce Elsa from Thetius and enjoy this section. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. My name's Elsa. So I'm a senior analyst at Thetius. So we're an independent research organisation focused on technology and innovation in maritime. What I want to do today is just give you a clear picture of where trade digitalisation actually stands, what the opportunities are, and what's kind of getting in the way. So next slide, please. So despite decades of conversations around digital transformation, international trade still overwhelmingly runs on paper. A single trade transaction generates an average of 36 separate documents and 240 copies of those per shipment. Documentation consumes between 1 to 3% of global trade value, and more than 80% of trade finance is still paper-based. So that last figure is particularly interesting because capital is literally tied up in paper, waiting for physical documents to be released. So imagine the potential of actually having those funds available to reinvest straight away. And what's interesting is that there is technology available to support this. It's just not being leveraged effectively by trade. Next slide, please. So where are those clear opportunities to digitalise? Firstly, electronic bills of lading are probably the most significant. A paper bill of lading has to be physically couriered between parties. The process can take 5 to 10 days. Electronically, that same legally recognised transfer happens in under 24 hours. The UK's Electronic Trade Documents Act in 23 removed those legal barriers that have been blocking digital trade for decades. And then you've got digital certificates of origin to reduce those border delays. These documents determine which tariff applies to a shipment, and paper versions being filled out manually are error prone because the rules governing them are complex and constantly changing. So errors mean shipments get delayed, but digital certificates can be automatically verified, which cuts both errors and delays significantly. And automated customs declarations. So here we're talking pre-populated electronic forms using structured shipment data and filed automatically, with the ability of delivering cost reductions for over 14% for businesses that are already using them. And then finally, you've got supply chain visibility, which is arguably one of the biggest challenges. Operators are running between 8 to 12 disconnected platforms that don't communicate with each other. And the opportunity isn't necessarily to replace them all. It's actually to look at how to use technology to make them communicate better. Next slide, please. So looking at that interoperability challenge in more detail, digitalizing documents is not the final end solution. It won't automatically deliver all those amazing benefits if the underlying systems can't talk to each other. So at Thetius, one of the things that we do is interview around 200 industry experts each year to understand what challenges they're facing with their technology and where they're innovating. And we have at least 50 of those conversations that are telling a variation of this exact story. The industry is making the move from those 36 paper documents per transaction to 8 to 12 digital systems per operator, but there's still little communication between those systems. Data is having to be manually extracted and then re-uploaded from system to system, which increases the risk of errors and data loss. And so when we actually ask these technology vendors and operators what the barriers to adoption are, it's rarely the capability of the technology. You know, we have some fantastic technology out there. It's just that operators get stuck in their ways, dependent on those paper workflows or legacy technology that they purchased maybe 20 years ago. And they struggle to kind of release control of those historic practices to look at innovation and exploring new ways of working. So ultimately, it's a mindset issue, not so much a technology issue. Next slide, please. So what changes need to be made to support digitalisation in trade? There are a number of things that can be done today. The first is understanding the legal landscape. So those barriers that block digital trade documents for decades have now been removed. As we discussed, the ETDA in 23 means electronic bills of lading, digital certificates and e-signatures are all legally valid under English law. that changes the whole game. So you need to know what the law is now and question your partners and advisors who are still recommending using paper as the default. Ask them why, particularly when there are so many clear benefits to going digital. The second is to buy interoperability, not just innovation. So there are loads of fantastic new high-tech solutions coming out in this space, but we know from our research the highest return of investment comes from making existing systems communicate that rather than adding new ones. So map the tech across your trade ecosystem and understand how any new technology would impact that. Will it fit seamlessly into your workflow and aid communication, or is it just an additional high-tech step that you now have to jump through within your operations? And finally, it's looking at seeking out comparable success stories. So industry-wide statistics or huge pilot projects are fantastic for adding context and showing the benefits of going digital. But the most compelling evidence to build a case study to invest comes from looking at businesses of a similar size in a similar sector who can physically demonstrate the benefits they've gained. So those niche case studies that are relevant to you exist. You just have to go out there and find those specific ones. So look at your partners, your competitors, even see what they're doing, and see if it's actually worth investing in specific technology before taking the plunge. Next slide, please. And that was it. Thank you all so much for listening. That was just setting the scene for digitalization.
Elsa, thank you so much. And that really is a beautifully set scene. So your work here is done. Next slide, please, Dana. Look, without any further ado, we're going to hand over to Liam and Hader, who are going to explain about how 20,000 SMEs stopped trading to the EU on Brexit. And many are still suffering really expensive workarounds. And as we dig into this area, some of them with regime 40 and 42 are on the kind of the fringes of compliance. So I'm delighted to hand over to Liam of WTA, who's in our attendees list. So if you unmute to present these slides, and then Hader will follow on. So Liam, over to you.
Thank you, Mark, and I do apologise if the background noise is quite bad. I'm out and about in London today, and I've just managed to slot this in a half an hour that I've got spare.
Liam, we're really grateful. I know that you're busy in London and you're still taking time because this is so important to you. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Sorry, Hader, I'm really struggling to hear you.
That's okay. I just said thanks. Go ahead.
No problem. No problem. Next slide, please. So to give you a bit of background about who I am and who WTA are, I'm head of sales at WTA, been at WTA for 5 years. We're an international freight forwarder based in Manchester with over 110 years history in freight forwarding. We specialise in many sectors, one of those being food and beverage, but we also cover FAK across the board. And we have been speaking to BOEX about a solution for DDP with helping people get into markets, back into markets like the EU that they've sadly traded in since Brexit. Next slide, please. So, talking about Incoterms, they dictate who is responsible for what along the responsible for who is responsible for what along the journey. So you need to make sure that they're agreed in advance with your buyer to avoid any ambiguity. Good practice is to note those Incoterms on your commercial invoice. X works on paper, yeah. For an exporter, it looks brilliant. It's simplest, lowest cost option, and it makes goods basically just make the goods available to your site, and everything from that point is handled by your buyers. So feels like you're removing cost and complexity, but in reality, in logistics these days, we're all buying in our personal lives with services like Amazon, and delivery is part of the service. So, if you do X words, it can actually do you out of business because you can be too hard to deal with. It's difficult to move the products. You might not have specialists to move your products, might understand the rules and regulations. So yeah, the challenges come when the nominated forwarder collects it. You lose control, you lose visibility. And critically, as I mentioned, that forwarder might not know requirements for the markets that they're importing or exporting out of. And even though technically it is the buyer's responsibility, in practice, the supplier often carries a reputational impact if something goes wrong because it's your product and your customer relationship. And what we're seeing more broadly is that buyer expectation has changed. Again, as I mentioned, if you think about the way you buy in your personal life, it's the Amazon system. It's delivered to your door. That's what you expect. So while ex-works can work in certain controlled trade relationships in a modern export market, it doesn't really help, and you lose control and you lose custom, and it damages customer experience. Next slide, please. So just to bring this together, it's really about what happens when you take control of the logistics process rather than leaving it fragmented across multiple parties. So when you manage a shipment through to a structured model, you stay in control of the key variables. That means you choose the forwarder, you choose the routing, you choose the service level and the transit timelines. Importantly, you're working with partners who understand the specific requirements of your product. Things that, like, for example, in food and beverage, you've got to take into consideration shelf life, sensitivity. If you're moving pharmaceuticals, you've got to take into consideration temperature requirements, and the documentation and compliance required that sits behind all of that. So basically, you're ensuring that all of your export documentation and requirements and paperwork are handled correctly from the start with a knowledgeable freight forwarding team that's working on your side and keeping everything compliant and maintaining visibility throughout the whole transit. So rather than losing sight of the shipment once it leaves your site, you've got a clear view of what's happening throughout the entire process. From a customer's perspective, this translates into a much better customer experience. They get proactive communication rather than having to chase updates. They have one accountable party managing the full movement rather than it's handing over between different providers throughout the journey. And ultimately, a better customer experience commercially is where the real value comes in. You're protecting your brand and your reputation through consistent, reliable delivery and performance. You avoid the common trap of what looks cheap on paper, but becomes expensive in practice once delays, issues and corrective actions are factored in. And you're also in a stronger position to consolidate volume across lanes. So, if you're booking a load of work with a forwarder, you've got room to negotiate. You can say, all right, we're sending 100 containers to China. We've got some to Japan. Can we do a deal? Can we offset? So it's about driving consistency, consistency driving customer experience, and customer experience driving commercial performance. Next slide, please. So in practical terms, with DAP at WTA, we manage shipments end-to-end on a door-to-door basis. Handle the export customs here in the UK, and we can coordinate the full movement of the goods through to the destination country. All we need from you is the collection details, delivery address, and your buyer's contact information, along with the standard export documentation. So commercial invoice, packing list, any other relevant certification depending upon the goods that are being moved. And that is essential for both export and import clearances, so they can be processed without delay. Now, we're going on to DDP, and this is the exciting part where BOETs get involved. And as we all know, Brexit did untold damage to us as a country for our trade with the EU. But working in partnership with BOETs, we think we've come up with a great solution to essentially help you trade with Europe as if it was pre-Brexit again. And that's with the DDP solution that we're talking about at the moment. And that is where, correct me if I'm wrong, Hader, but it's where this is a dumbed down version, but BOETs act as the importer of record. They look after all the VAT, etc., and your stuff sails through. And it opens and unlocks markets that have been cut off for a few years now. And it's for me, DDP with the BOET solution is a way to open up those revenue streams again that have been lost. And it's a great opportunity.
You've taken my job, Liam, away. So thank you for that. Right, appreciate it. You
Sorry,
took my job away.
Well done. Go on, talk, mate.
No, you're absolutely right. You did it well. You did it well. You absolutely took my job away. Well done.
Yeah. Liam, do finish off your slides, Liam.
Yeah.
And next slide, please. I'm not sure if that's it. Oh no, border friction. So when we talk about border friction, we're really talking about anything that slows a shipment down at the point it crosses into another country. And in reality, it's rarely caused by the transport itself. The container of the truck is usually doing what it should. The friction happens at the border. And it's almost always down to paperwork, data accuracy, or compliance issues. That can include things like incorrect documentation, missing information, misclassified product codes. It can also be differences in how Incoterms are interpreted or how customs data is submitted. And, you know, in certain areas, pharmaceuticals, food and drink, etc., the bar's even higher. When you've got things like health certificates, labeling requirements, destination regulations, shelf life considerations, and it all needs to align perfectly for your goods to move without friction. Even small errors can disproportionately impact the shipment. It can be pulled for an inspection, put into storage, or delayed while customs raise queries. And in temperature-sensitive or time-sensitive products, delay can quickly turn into serious commercial issues. And one thing is that, you know, the border force and customs agencies, you know, they take their time. They do it in their time. So, you know, sometimes you could have stuff sat there for a couple of weeks. So it's really important that you get everything right from the start, and you're speaking to a freight forwarder that understands requirements and can help you into different markets that you're going into. And the reason it happens so often is because every country operates differently. The documentation formats are different, the inspection process is different, enforcement focus varies from market to market. And on top of that, not every forwarder has deep experience in these markets. And they don't understand the specific behaviors of individual border points. At WTA, where we add value, we reduce that friction because we've got boots on the ground, where we don't have our own offices, we have partners. So in pretty much every corner of the globe, we've got boots on the ground, local knowledge and understanding of how the systems work. So working with us, you're best placed to negotiate that border friction to reduce it. And I think that's all my slides. Yeah. Thank you very much. I'm going to have to dive off as well because I've got to go to a meeting at 2. So thank you so much. And I really do apologize for the background noise.
All right, Liam, thank you very much. Hader, over to you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mark. And thanks, and again, thanks for Liam. I know he's left, but really appreciate the fact that he's taking time out and he's in London to try and do this for us. So you can imagine it, you can see how important he thinks this is. And Liam did a fairly good job of understanding how this works and understanding how the process works. It's effectively, we as BOEX take over the ownership and the duty. We become the importer of record. However, we do not take ownership of the goods. Now, this sounds a very complex process, and the solution seems very simple. So let me try and explain it in two parts. First part is the platform. We, BOEX, have created a platform which allows you and your customers to contract together, contractually aligned, make sure you're all on site, all the documentation, all the paperwork is done on the platform. Once you've agreed the contract, once both parties agree, they agreed on the platform, and you basically create you create a contractual agreement within the two of you. That allows us, BOEX, to act on your behalf. We are set up in the UK and Ireland, and we've registered for VAT in the UK, Ireland, France, and Belgium. We are now allowed to act on behalf of that contract. So we can act as importer of record, and we can also act on behalf and create the VAT returns because we are the importer of record. However, to clarify, we do not take title of the goods, we do not take ownership of them. All the logistics and supply and all the legal requirements per those product is still with you. All we have gained is access to to act on your behalf for that contract. Now, what will then happen is the contract is set up on the platform. The platform then allows us to move the authority to our Irish company. Our Irish company has registered for VAT in Ireland and France and Belgium. You then ship the goods as normal through either Belgium and or France onwards. We make sure that our data is on your invoice, i.e. our importer of record number, the VAT registration, either Belgium and or France, and the details required for that. The authorities in France and Belgium see the invoice is from a European entity with a VAT registration locally. They then see that's correct. They then let the goods through. No duty is required to be paid because it's already EU registered. The goods then flow through automatically and go onwards into the EU as normal. Effectively, we've created an agreement between you and your customer to act on your, we have created an agreement to act on your behalf. We then have the process of delivering in those goods into the EU because we've registered for VAT in those countries. Again, sounds really simple, but there's complexity behind it. The complexity is obviously we have to gain the authority on the contract, and the other part is to prepare the VAT returns and the VAT data in Belgium and France. We do all of that process, taking all the pain away for you to do that. This process, the actual VAT returns and the VAT registration and all of that is being done by multinationals and global companies all over the world. And in this example that's on the screen, this is for a New Zealand company. So anybody in the world can do this. It does not have to be in the UK. The VAT registration we can do for anywhere in the world. But particularly for the UK, it takes away Brexit. It takes away the issues that was caused by Brexit. So to reiterate, the contract is on the platform. BOEX has the authority to act on your behalf. We've got a VAT registration process already set up and operating. Companies like Marks and Spencer's, Waitrose, all the big multinationals you can think of have already do this, and millions and billions of goods go through this every day. That we've just put those two processes together within the BOEX platform. Dana, could you please move to the next slide? That's it. I mean, literally, that is it. It's as simple and easy as that. So what Liam was referring to was that we, BOEX, work with him as the freight forwarder. We make sure everything is in place. You get a one-stop solution to deliver goods into the EU as if Brexit never happened. Perfect. Thank you, Dana. Mark, over to you.
Thank you very much for that. Really appreciate it. And if you like what you've heard, please contact us and we can share in depth the commercial, operational, and legal details. What I'm going to do, next slide, please, Dana, is take you through the BOEX platform. What we'll do today is keep this really simple and explain what BOEX does, how it works in practice, and what we've seen in the digital trades that we have executed. Trade today for SMEs is still heavily manual, it's fragmented, and often slower than it should be. And most trades involve PDFs and disconnected systems. It's the same data is entered multiple times, and documents are shared back and forth. Errors are often only found when they reach the bank or customs, and that is where the delays and the costs start to mount up. Now, BOEX replaces that process with a single shared digital trade record, which provides contractual and legal certainty for all the parties on all the trades completed within our digital platform. Next slide, please. If you do not believe us, this is the data from several credible sources. And the larger companies and organizations have the resources to invest in the systems, but SMEs simply do not. So BOEX has created a solution that could power a FTSE 100 company. And what we are doing is we are delivering this to you, UK SMEs, as software as a solution service, so that you capture and you get rewarded by the extra productivity and profitability. All of that stays with you. Next slide, please. The BOEX platform supports the creation for your exports, imports, and intra-UK trades. And here you can see the key elements: trade parties, terms, bank accounts, documents, notified parties, which, for example, would be freight forwarders like WTA and customs brokers, and enhancers such as trade finance providers. Now, this workflow gives you exactly what you need to create and execute and fund a digital trade. It's been crafted that any employee new to your company can follow the process. And what it does, it gives all the parties the ability to work as one with one single version of the truth. Next slide, please. In this documents section, on the left of the screen, you can see an invoice which has been ingested by our custom AI, or it can be imported directly from Xero, as we've integrated with that accounting platform, or you can create your own templates and data. And on the right of the screen is the digital data is now generated. And a key element to achieve exceptional levels of accuracy is that both parties can review each element of data with the ability to update any errors or issues. And once everything is agreed, the trade is digitally signed and executed. Everything is timestamped, auditable, and secure in this safe, two-factor authenticated protected platform. Next slide, please. Oh, hang on. Yeah, the process. Hold this slide. From a security standpoint, access is permission controlled, data is encrypted, and every action creates a tamper-evident audit trail. This is important not only for both parties, but for banks, regulators, and all the counterparties who need to trust exactly what they're seeing. Next slide, please. To secure the data in the reports that you'll hear from Zara in shortly, we worked with the administration team of 6 staff at Jointine. We mapped their entire process. We worked through every single detail from the original order received to the final audit of the funds collected. There are hundreds and hundreds of audible data points which have generated the public reported, so elegantly created by Zara. But the reality is, what you read and hear today, we are seeing in live trades. And this is not by removing compliance. It is by structuring the process properly from the start. And this is the key point. You do not fix trade at the end. You structure it correctly at the beginning to secure these wins. BOEC's digital structure enables trades to be executed cleanly across any border. Next slide, please. So, for the buyer, that means better cash flow, fewer surprises, and smoother delivery. And for the exporter, it means fewer stalled deals, more predictable sales cycles, and stronger EU relationships. And the important point is this only works because the trade is structured digitally from the outset. The roles, the documents, and the responsibilities are aligned before the goods move, not corrected afterwards. And this connects directly to what we're seeing in the reports, that the biggest barriers to trade are operational, not regulatory. When you structure your trade properly, the friction simply disappears and the execution becomes faster, cleaner, more reliable, and most importantly, it's legally robust. So digital trade is enabled. So please step up now and come and try it with us for yourself. So thank you for that. Right, that concludes my presentation. Next slide, please. Dana, could you do me a favor and just turn off the share screen? And what I'm doing is I'm delighted to invite Jane Smith, the Managing Director of Jointine Products Lincoln Limited, and David Rolich to unmute, turn on your videos. And what we're going to do is sort of have a fireside chat on this warm summer's afternoon. So, Jane and David, are you live, kicking? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
I'm live and kicking, definitely.
Brilliant. So I'll just kind of set the scene very briefly. There are about 5.5 million SMEs in the UK. We employ about 4.5 million people, and 99.2 of these companies are 0 to 49 employees, and only 11% of you are actually exporting. That's 605,000 companies. And critically, 20,000 SMEs simply stopped exporting when Brexit came out. So getting the SMEs, UK SMEs, back into Europe at a competitive rates is what we want to solve today. So basically, you have got one of our oldest trading clients, Jane Smith, who's done a huge amount of work with us, helping shaping the solution, and David, who's one of our new clients, who joined us last week with a container of wine from Spain to the UK. Really, so to start us off, Jane, tell us a little bit about your company, but when we met, what were your sort of key frustrations? What was really itching you, and what did you want digital trade to resolve? What was on your sort of wish list? So over to you, Jane. Get us rolling.
Thank you. Yes, so Jane Smith or Jane Cullen, I answer to both. I'm just going to hijack you for a very brief second, Mark, just to say, can we just take a moment to actually take this in? The gravity of what we're doing here today. This has taken me 20 years to get people in one room with the same goal in mind. We want to work together, we want to cooperate, and we want to make it better. It's absolutely amazing what we can achieve if we all come together and put our penny in and say, we can do this and we can make things work. So first of all, an incredible thank you to you. Yes, so secondly, I'm been running an SME in Lincoln for 20 years. We're the UK's only producer of gasket paper materials, which we export across the world. So my big itch is, as Mark points out, such a small fraction of SMEs export. There's a reason for that. It's hard. It shouldn't be. It's hard because it's disparate or even desperate. How you get your information, how you work out if you're doing things right is spread across far too many places. So that's my big itch, is to try and sort that out. Trade should be passing a baton like you're in a relay race, but what we tend to do is put the baton down and get changed into our own livery to pick it back up again before we can start. And that livery is your PDF. PDFs are just a photograph of data, and PDF is how most businesses trade. Absolutely is. 800 million new PDFs are raised across the globe every day. Take that in. Every day, 800 million PDFs. Trade, digitalization of trade should not be about making documents digital. It should be about the process. And this is what BOEX listened to me when I complained bitterly and said, yes, we agree. We get you. We understand what you're saying. We've worked together from the outset to try and come up with a platform that makes the process digital, not makes documents digital. So hence the fact that we've cooperated with Xero to try and get a push of invoices directly from one compartment to another without this photograph of a PDF in between, which forces you to stop, break off, check, rekey. So that's my big itch.
Brilliant. Good to hear that. And sort of a similar but different question to you, David. We were introduced by the Food and Drink Exporters Association.
Yeah.
And what were your sort of core drivers? Just give us in a couple of minutes what really is grinding your gears.
Core drive for me, we are so I make wines in France, Spain, Italy, Georgia, and we sell it to 20 plus different markets. And so my core driver is some of the markets that we work with are that my bank won't support in my trades out there. So to have the usable digital asset that can be used and proof of trade, etc., is a massive benefit. And if it secures my position with my customer, and it makes Alchemy Wines ahead of the game, that we are a small business, family-owned wine business, but we are ahead of the game. You know, we produce a number of sustainable packaging, wines, etc. But that's one element to the business. But to be ahead of the game in terms of moving forward in the right way in terms of technology as well, it makes us stand out. And if it gives not only my supplier base, whether they get involved in this as well, but I'm going to be presenting it to all of them, Alchemy Wines itself and our sizable, some of the distribution partners we work with are big organizations, and if we can show a roadmap to them that this is a great platform to be involved with, then they'll jump on it as well. And I think, I've been in the wine trade since 1989. I've been running Alchemy since 2002. I've had customers who are with us from the outset. We haven't lost them. So if we add another element where we are saying, with confidence, we've done some tests with BOEX. We'd like to move forward with them, and we'd like you to we're inviting you to get involved in the program as well, because it secures, I can use an example. Selling containers of wine to the Middle East, which is, as you can imagine, everybody's been a disaster over the last 4 months. But every time we send a container there or an order there, we have to create a document pack that we then physically have to have collected from our office, and DHL or somebody comes to collect it and sends it out there. Well, the UAE have signed into this digital platform or whatever already. So if I can persuade my customer to remove me having to send those envelopes out, it's going to save me 200 or 300 quid a month just sending envelopes to Dubai. So again, and if they're on board and we can prove, then they might open it up to every single one of their suppliers, which could be amazing.
That's brilliant, David. Thanks for that, and that's sort of music to our ears, because that's enough to pay our bills. So we're thrilled to hear you be so succinct.
Oh, I doubt that. It's not that much wine.
Brilliant. So Jane, back to you, my friend. You've had some sort of you've really helped us with the integration of Zero, and you just, it was interesting. We were chatting earlier, and you said, look, it's not really exporter friendly. Just explain what the issue is, because I'm sure many SMEs have this. And then what's really cool is Sean, our sort of founder, is actually in Moldova at the moment with our sort of tech team, always looking at what comes next. And we're always listening to the problems and issues you flag up. So tell us, what was the problem, and where are you on that journey? Because that's sort of exciting for us as we solve really gritty problems. Over to you.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, we use Zero, we used Sage before that, and they are in the nicest way, accounting software packages. They're not trade solutions, and they never will be. They can produce a domestic invoice, no problem, but that invoice will not cross a border without some form of addition and intervention. So as we're trying to progress towards single truth of documents, and we're trying to progress towards frictionless trade, it's not going to happen while accounting software is driving this. So your commercial invoice has enough data on there to report your VAT obligations, but your accounting software invoice cannot get across the border. So with BOEX, we've been looking to try and flip this process around, that BOEX becomes our backbone of the business, and that we create all of the sales and trade data from within the platform, and then we do a push the other way into the Zero platforms to do your accounting element of it. So at the moment, I've probably got about 15 different invoice layouts, depending on where it's going, because the platform just doesn't hold the data I need to go on an invoice. So we've worked really closely together. BOEX have listened to my irritations and complaints, and we're trying to make this a trade first package.
Brilliant, Jane. That's beautifully put. And actually, because there's hundreds and hundreds of thousands of SMEs in the same boat, I think there's 1 million Zero customers, which means if we follow the data, that's 100,000 of them exporting. We solve this problem for you to make it export ready. That's 100,000 Zero customers are going to go, woohoo. I should be more reserved. Anyway, David, back to you. One of the things that really impressed me is you immediately understood that the Bill of Exchange, when it's digitized, has the 1882 Bill of Exchange Act and UN treaty law behind it. And you were actually at that time in conversation with your bank, and we've had a chat with your bank as well, the sort of the finance team, and we're at a very exciting point. So just tell me one of the motivators for you about how quickly you gripped and understood the power of that and what it means for you as a business.
Yeah, so the motivation behind that was because of the wonderful orange man in America has created such a tsunami of mess. When we'd produced 140,000 bottles of wine for the Middle East and we couldn't get it there, or 4 containers went via India. We had 1 return. I got another 50,000 bottles that were meant to all go in March, and obviously it just demolished my cash flow. So I immediately went out to people and with my bank as well. So when they said, "Oh, David, we'd like to maybe have a look at some invoice discounting where you have to basically give your whole debtor book to them," I'm going, really? Do I really need to give my whole debtor book to it or whatever? And then suddenly when you've got this bill of exchange and the digital asset that you can use, and the bank will hopefully in the future be able to use that as a extra layer of security for your trade, then maybe we wouldn't need to give our full debtor book to the bank on your, and then going out to if you're happy for me to share this other bit, Mark, as well, about the other lenders out there as well, where they are explaining and advertising regularly. The amount of emails I've had about we can do a similar loan to the bounce back at similar interest rates. So you go and say, oh my goodness, that looks quite interesting. So you go and put your heart and soul into selling your businesses to 5 or 6 finance companies over this short period of time that I've done. And you literally are having to sell it because it's my data and whatever that I've got to share, and I've got to try and say, yeah, well, we will get out of this when. But what they're looking to charge in interest is daylight robbery, and it's nowhere near what was originally set out in their advertising or their targeting email. And it just, for me to have that bit of exchange that you could potentially use down the line as layers of security, it's fundamental to hopefully giving the assurances to these banks and whatever who seek to withdraw themselves when you need help. So it's an amazing piece of documentation, not another PDF, but another piece of documentation that can secure your cash flow moving forward.
That's phenomenal, and thank you for sharing your pain. I mean, this is not a therapy session, but
no, sorry,
really,
I'm just going to tuck into all of these in a minute.
Yeah, but actually, what's really important is the team behind Berks. They did the very first visa payment from St Kitts to Vancouver, about 25 years ago, and we've moved billions and billions and billions of pounds worth of money. So they really understand the movement of money and how the bill of exchange is one of the oldest trading documents, is what they settled on to digitize, to power this whole infrastructure. So it's fantastic to hear you talk about it elegantly, and I know there's a lot of people in Berks who'll be thrilled to hear it. So Jane, back to you. Really sort of quick wins. We've got the last sort of two minutes or so. Is just sort of tell us, what are your wins? I know you talk about OpEx, you talked about the workflow automation, you talked about sort of training staff. Just give us a sort of 60 seconds on wins. What do you?
Yeah,
2 minutes. Sorry.
Really, really quickly, just following on from what we've
actually 2. I don't know why I stressed you out with that. Take your time.
Let's just talk about that bill of exchange and simplify it into. It's just an agreement. It's a digital handshake. It's not a complex documentation. And the difference with what we're pushing with BOEX is you sign the agreement, your trade agreement, at the outset, not at the point where you raise the invoice further down the line. This is groundbreaking because this moves your payment terms from potentially 30, 60 days to this digital asset can actually give you finance at the point your customer places the order. This could help businesses grow significantly.
You're right.
Absolutely.
It should improve cash flow by 30 days. If you
Absolutely.
if you're invoice financing, it'll improve your cash payment by 30 days.
And you don't have to hand your whole order book and information over. And we SMEs don't get overdrafts anymore. So what else have we got? This answers all the questions. It's amazing. The other thing is it reduces your training time because the platform is intelligent. It learns, it recalls information. So to try and teach somebody the complexities of export would probably take me at least 9 weeks for it to properly 9 months for it to properly sink in. On a BOEX platform, you only have to explain the principles and the choices. And so your training time reduces significantly. You're right, no more courier costs of sending documents abroad, but not just that, no more rekeying costs because it's uploading and reusing data, not forcing you to produce the same information in an invoice, in a certificate of origin, in a bill of, a shipping bill. Because if you think about those documents, basically got all the same information in. So let's join them up into one piece, which is what BOEX is helping us do. One other really, really quick thing is picking up on your DDP issue for any businesses who are suffering from the GDPR, where you're required to do an EU entity registration so that you can put your product safety data out into the EU. This is another opportunity where BOEX have listened and said, well, we can host that data. So here's another saving. I don't have to have a CMR system because your accounting software doesn't pull your customer data back easily, let's face it. So I have to use a separate paid for CMR. I can get rid of that. I don't have to pay for my certificate declarations. I don't have to pay for my customs declarations because they're all done neatly within this platform. Basically, I am going to be shedding cost of additional platforms, saving efficiency in time and process. And I can't thank BOEX enough for all they've done to listen to me and understand what the needs are and help me implement it. Thank you.
Thanks, Jane. Well, this really is a therapy session. So, so Dave, just literally, I mean, it's 60 seconds. What was fascinating is you're really keen to grow, and that means going into some sort of fairly edgy markets where you might not know people. We talked about the one ID system that we have. Just talk a little bit about sort of how the kind of confidence of actually knowing that you have contracted with a real company because of the protocols. Just talk us through, just give us 60 seconds on growth and how this digital tool just helps you de-risk a bit. Just your high level observations.
Well, we do ship to some fairly interesting markets. We sell into Nigeria, we're soon to be into Kenya, China, and I ask for some funds up front, and I won't let any product go until I've got all the funds in. But regardless of that, this will still give the end distribution business the confidence that they're dealing with a legitimate business. There are lots of nasty people out there who do work harder than we do to take money from us. So this flips it round. It gives us, and with the people that I think you're going to build with, if you suddenly say Santander are on board or Lloyd's are on board or whatever, those big ticks will just make a huge difference to your growth, as well as us being the first people to be with you to support your movement going forward.
Brilliant, David. And that is actually a beautiful way to wrap this up, because look, I mean, one of the things for the audience, this is a team effort. We're not super clever. We're just very practical people who've got a stunning solution, but it's designed for you, the SME. You have to come and use it. And both David and Jane, a sincere thank you. That was a real tour de force. And that's a session I'll never forget. I really enjoyed that. And thank you for your honesty, which I think will inspire a lot of people to step up. So thank you both. So Dana, if you could kind of reshare the screen. And it is a real pleasure to introduce Zara, who I've got to know. And if you're ever worried that civil servants might not be working hard enough, she is a ninja, day and night, working away for the greater good. So Zara, it's such a pleasure to hand over to you. And just you have about 8 minutes to talk about your project and how important it is as you're trying to showcase British innovation, British exports, in this case, to the Australians and the New Zealanders, or the Kiwis and the Aussies. So thank you, Zara.
Thanks, Mark. Amazing. Well, hi, everyone. It's a real pleasure to be here, and one of the many, many webinars I seem to have delivered with BOEX, which is an absolute pleasure. And thank you so much for having me. So I wanted to talk to you today a little bit about digital trade, and specifically about what happens when SMEs and exporters actually get the right tools to compete on a level playing field with giants of global commerce. And if we move to the next slide, please. So a little bit about Public. This work basically draws on the analysis Public has been carrying out for the FCDO. Basically, what we've been doing is looking at how trade digitalization can support high growth tech sectors and SME exporters across the UK APAC corridor. So Public is a digital transformation advisory partner to government, and we have been working closely with the Department for Business and Trade and FCDO on trying to basically promote UK technologies in delivering digital trade across different kinds of borders. Next slide, please. So let's get into what we've actually found. Next slide. So I'll be fairly high level about this, but when it comes to mapping the trade tech landscape, what we've essentially seen is that trade tech is no longer a a niche. Global trade is about a $32 trillion industry, and the technology built to support it, which we call trade tech, is really there to be making trade processes more efficient, secure, and sustainable. Ultimately, what we've seen is that we've mapped about over 300 companies already building the tools to make cross-border trade more efficient. And it really shows when we see how these end-to-end solutions are delivering like tangible changes and benefits to SMEs and exporters as well. Next slide. So here in the UK, the market is approximately about £5 billion, and the direction of travel is quite clear. Rising demand for tools that basically cut costs and delays, as well as paperwork. We've seen new access to trade finance through digitized documentation. AI and automation seems to be the talk everywhere, and it's also moving into logistics. We have customs and invoicing as well, where AI is making a big difference, and growing pressure for supply chain visibility and ESG compliance as well. What we've seen from a government side of things, and in my experience of working both at the intersection of government and technology, is seeing how much free trade agreements are accelerating SME access to new markets. But interoperability, onboarding, and fragmented systems really remain as the main barriers. Next slide. So to understand real world impact, we basically ran a pilot, and we did so in Australia, New Zealand, Thailand, and Singapore. And we looked at how the geographic landscape for Australia and New Zealand basically means that shipments involve long transit times and complex logistics coordination as well. We've also seen that the regulatory environment and shared language really meant that, it made the legal standards quite easy to be understood between Australia and New Zealand and the UK, which was a prime test bed for digital trade. We've talked about pharmaceuticals and chemicals as well, kind of being the main use cases in this case. And ultimately, the free trade agreements between Australia and New Zealand really provide a strong policy framework for digital trade. Next slide. So how we captured benefits, who we worked with, as you can see, at the heart of this trade was BOEX and Jointeen. Next slide, please. And to really understand the real world impact, we looked at a few things. So number one, we looked at trade documents. So in this, we really tried to see how much standardized, centralized documentation and creating that single source of truth that BOEX very beautifully did, how much that actually affects the trade processing time. Then we move on to things like time and communication. So how much automation actually reduces manual coordination. And then lastly, looking at end-to-end timelines for the trade itself. So actually looking at how much how much there's an actual kind of deduction of processing time when it comes to minimizing the rework and delays when it comes to trade. Next slide, please. Sorry, Dana, just very quickly, I think I sent you some other slides.
Yeah, I think we've got a mismatch.
Yes.
That could be, I think just crack on with what you see, Zara. We got about a minute left. So
a minute left, that's fine. Could we move on to the next two slides? Next one, please. So basically, one of the things that we did, and I will kind of segue into this, is that we basically with BOEX, we worked on digitizing the workflows that result in end-to-end trade processes, and the results were really dramatic. So things like physical document handling dropped by 55%, document preparation time fell by 60%, and lastly, processing times that I referred to dropped by 83% overall. And none of this really came from changing the compliance rules. It really came purely from removing friction across the process. So what this means going forward is that for businesses that are watching this, trade tech providers are already building really practical tools to cut complexity and the cost of trading internationally, as we see by BOEX and Jointine, who are a fantastic team. So in customs, payments, logistics, market intelligence as well. Engaging with them early on means that SMEs can really enter new markets with more confidence, and the earliest adopters tend to gain a lasting competitive edge. And I think overall, my recommendations, conscious of time, would be 4 things that will really help to scale this, seeing this work across so many corridors. First is, of course, the stability in digital trade standards, so SMEs can invest with confidence. Secondly, would be deployment incentives, so thinking about co-investment or match funding to really help SMEs take on pilots without bearing the risk alone. Third, practical sector-specific free trade agreement guidance with step-by-step resources for sectors like chilled foods, dairy, pharmaceuticals, and so on. And fourth, thinking a little bit about how cybersecurity is built into adoption from day one as well, so that trust between SMEs and fantastic trade techs like BOEX is there from the get-go. So next slide, please. Our reports and full findings are written up here and they're available to download. So details are on the slide, and please do reach out should you have any more questions. Thank you so much.
Dara, that was formidable. Thank you very much indeed. Look, we've overrun by 2 minutes, but I think that was so worth it. I mean, honestly, that's thousands and thousands of hours of effort has gone into those reports, and they're really worth a read. And it's not all about us. There are other trade tech suppliers, but there's some superb innovation in the United Kingdom. Look, digital trade, it's here on BOEX and it's here now. You've heard from Jane and David, who so elegantly just explained why they're in it. So come and join them, come and join us. And next slide, please, Dana. What I want to do is just say thank you to you, Dana, for all the hard work and behind the scenes. And a really wonderful thank you to our speakers who've worked so hard to create thoughtful presentations so that we don't swamp you, that we give you an education that makes you think. I tell you what, I'm going to make one of my employees a digital trade champion. I'm going to tell them to go and contact BOEX. Let's run a series of, I don't know, 6-10 trades over 3 months, make a case study, go to your board and go, boss, I think I found a way forward for us. I think you're going to like it. It's that simple. It's what we do all day, every day with UK SMEs. And finally, it's a big thank you to our audience. We'd be nothing without you. And as I've mentioned, it's not just all of you on the call, and thank you for your time today. It's for the many that will be listening to the recording as we go forward. So all of you, thank you so much. And we look forward to hearing from you soon. Thank you, all of you. And the last slide from the wonderful team in Manchester, who we're looking forward to working with more closely. A wonderful wrap for us all. So thank you and good afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks to everyone.